NBA playoffs start April 16th, and with the play-in games, there are now 20 teams vying for the NBA championship. The 2022 playoffs give you up to 9 weeks of action, with game number 1 of the NBA Finals not even tipping off until June 2nd. Last year, the NBA playoff package was listed for $249, but we've made it even better this year by lowering the entire 9-week playoff package to $199. While the early bird catches the worm may be a cliche, but it holds true to this incredible offer. The first 99 customers can use the coupon code FIRST99 and save an additional $50 off the playoff package, dropping the price down to $149. That's right, 9 weeks of NBA action for $149. That's under $17 per week. Act fast to use code FIRST99, as only the first 99 customers can use this code.
Happy Thursday, guys. Welcome in right here to WagerTalk TV. You're watching Puck Time. I'm Andrew McInnis. I have Carmine Bianco with me and Bryan Leonard in his usual Thursday spot. April hockey continues. Lots of interesting games to break down every single day. Lots of great scenarios. Lots of must-win games for certain teams. And, of course, even those teams already in spots trying to fight for their certain positions. Today's games, we have the Capitals visiting the Maple Leafs in Toronto, the Wild and the Stars, Oilers and the Predators, and of course the late game here with the Golden Knights and the Calgary Flames. Should be a great game on that one. Guys, before we jump into the show, I just wanted to start off with some transparency here. I was red hot in the NHL, still a great week and a half to 2 weeks record here and on the season, but 1-4 in my last 5. Unacceptable. Apologies go out to people that have joined me over the last couple days. Obviously, it's only a last couple day sample size here, but it's just past couple days I've not really had the best read in the NHL, I guess you could say. Yesterday I had the first period over in that Rangers Philly game. Expected goals were I think over 3 in that period, or at least kind of the situations that we saw, and unfortunately couldn't get another goal there. So things aren't really working out for me. Just wanted to be fully transparent with that. It was a 1-2 day yesterday. 1-1 baseball, 0-1 in the NHL. But guys, we have a big day for guys on this show today. I'm going to start with you, Carm. 9-3 with 5% plays in 2022, 9-0 in the NHL. You're seeing things very well. So congratulations to you, Carm, on that run, man. Looking forward to making that 10-0 tonight. Congratulations, Carm.
Yeah, no, thanks. Listen, Andrew, and don't worry about the 1-4 run. You're super hot. It's ebbs and flows, right? We talk about, like in sports with teams and like variance. You know what I mean? If the Colorado Avalanche lose 3 games in a row, they're not a bad team. They've just lost 3 in a row, and you know that they're going to win. So you've had a phenomenal year. Just keep it going. The Rangers got there for us in regulation time. On the show, we had them as a show best bet at -1.5 plus money. So hopefully some guys made some money on finally getting a show best bet correct. Listen, if you watch that first period of the game, and I did, the Rangers came out flat. They had to build into the game. Flyers looked good for the first 9 or 10 minutes of the game. And I think that had more to do with the Rangers not looking good. And when we talk about goalies, Georgiev, he kept them in that game, or at least he kept Philadelphia off the score sheet until the Rangers finally woke up. And then the Rangers did what we expected them to do and won that game. But another thing I want to mention, a bunch of comments on yesterday's video after it was uploaded. I want to thank all you guys. We love the fact that you guys are super active in our live show comments section, all of you. But also, a lot of you came to Andrew's defense yesterday. Wednesdays it's like when you have your crazy uncle over, unfortunately. I wish I did a bit of research, because the press gave Andrew a hard time on Montreal not tanking for the first pick in the draft, which they don't actually own. They traded it away, a conditional pick to Arizona. And the picks that they do have in the first round are also conditional picks for teams like Calgary and Carolina, which won't get them a top 7 spot in the draft anyways. So we'll have to mention that maybe on next Wednesday's show. Tanking won't make a difference for the Canadians this season, Andrew. Speaking of 5%, this man is 25-12 lifetime with 5% NHL plays, and he has one up today as well. Let's welcome Bryan Leonard to the show. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and I didn't watch the Wednesday show. I rarely ever watch the Wednesday show. I watch just about every other one because I'm trying to get some gambling information. But if I wanted to watch a comedy show, I'll turn on Netflix. But Andrew's been terrific all season long, and even though I don't want to see anybody lose, I appreciate him giving us a chance to move up in the standings to get somewhere within like a mile of him on what he has done this year. So, yeah, you're going to have wins and losses. The best, like I always say in baseball, I mean, the best teams win like 63% of the games. They're going to lose 37% of the time. The Dodgers lose. The Dodgers have the best talent in baseball. It happens. Andrew's having one of those seasons we would give a left nut for. Definitely congratulations to Andrew, and don't worry about the short term. It'll happen. And I always say if you lose a game, go back and look. Even if you win, you go back and look at the expected goals, and that'll tell you if you're on the wrong side or not. People always say you want to be on the right side of the game as opposed to the wrong side, and other people say you want to have the winner. Well, this way you can take a look at both, and it'll confirm if you're doing well. It confirms that you were on the right side of that game.
Well, I really appreciate it, Brian, and you're having a great season as well, man. Especially with those, highly rated plays, 4%, 5% best bets. So Carm and Brian, check them out. Both of them found at WagerTalk.com. Lots of great games today. And of course, 2 5% best bets for these two gentlemen. So looking forward to it. For me right now, loaded at WagerTalk, I just have a 4% MLB best bet. Hockey plays going up after this show. So let's move on to the show, though, guys. Let's jump into our very first game here. The Washington Capitals, Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs are minus 160 at home. Washington Capitals are plus 140 on the road here. Total sits at 6.5 here. And, Kyle, we were talking yesterday, and we were speaking with Prez as well, about the Maple Leafs and kind of how, you've had your fun joking around with Prez about how the Buffalo Sabres had the number of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Some teams just do that against other teams. They just know how to play against them. It just always seems to work out. But one thing that we have noticed, and I actually went back and looked at this, the Maple Leafs have always had a solid bounce back spot the next day after losing to the Buffalo Sabres. Whether it be a victory or not, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about goals. And the Toronto Maple Leafs struggling against Craig Anderson and the Buffalo Sabres defense is quite puzzling to me. But against this Washington Capitals team that has won 4 straight games, against some actually pretty decent teams like Boston, talking about Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, besides that Philadelphia win, all against pretty good teams here, we're going to get a focused Toronto team in this one. Obviously, a Washington team that was flat for quite some time. They're going to make the playoffs, but they want to go in with some type of positive momentum here. We saw 1 under with the Maple Leafs last game. I think we're going to go right back to the over here, expect some goals in this one, especially with how well Washington's playing. I expect them to come in feeling good about themselves and against the Toronto team at home, looking to get some bounce back here after that loss to Buffalo. So despite that high 6.5 number here, Carm, I'm on the over 6.5.
Yeah, I can't blame you on that, Andrew. I mentioned when we were talking about Washington, and this probably goes back almost 10 days ago. They were on a bad run. They just weren't scoring goals, and it's why they were on a bad run. But we said, the quality on that team, at some point, they're going to start scoring some goals. And they have. They had that weekend series in which they beat the Bruins and the Penguins. Prior to that, they beat Tampa, and then they followed it up with, scoring 9 against Philadelphia. Now, they're not going to score 9 tonight, but I expect them to score. Campbell's going to start for the Leafs tonight. And, after coming back from that rib injury, he is 3-0-1 in the 4 games. But I think he's a product of benefiting from the Leafs scoring a ton of goals, because his goals against average, when he was hot earlier in the season, he was having a good first half of the season. His goals against average was well below 2. I think it was like at 82 at one point. During these 4 games that he's played, his goals against average is 3.48. And this has to be an issue for this team going into the playoffs. I just don't see how, when we get into the NHL playoffs and we see better matchups, that we're going to see 6-5 games with the Leafs involved. So they're gonna have to rely on goaltending as well too. And Shalgren and Campbell are your 2 goalies, and if Campbell's not 100% fit because of that rib injury, it might bode. It might be another first round exit for the Toronto Maple Leafs, depending on who they get in the first round. So, with that said, I want to see what we get out of Campbell tonight. He hasn't looked super sharp, and the Leafs have had to score goals because of it. So I like your over 6.5 here. And you know what? I have a slight lean on Washington here, getting plus money. I get it. The Leafs rebound after losses against the Sabres. They played them 4 times this year. They won the first one 5-4. They lost the next 3 against Buffalo, 2 of them in Toronto, and 2 of them by big score lines. And then the Leafs responded, I think, last time out with a 4-0 win against the Dallas Stars, and that was a game in which Matthews was suspended. But with that said, Washington's playing well. They're scoring goals. I won't overreact to the 9-2 game against the Flyers because, as I said, the Flyers are just running out their season. It's the games prior to that where they beat Boston, Pittsburgh, and Tampa Bay that I'm impressed with, because they played some very good playoff-style hockey. So with that said, they are a live dog tonight. Betting against the teams, or betting on teams going into Toronto when the Leafs are off a loss, is usually not a good thing. But this is a spot where I'm going to take the plus 140 or so, throw some pizza money on it. But the main play is the over in this game. Brian?
I can agree on the over. I would slightly disagree on the side. You said it was just a pizza bet, so it's not really much for you. But I think the line's a little bit cheap here. If you go back over the last month, goals plus or minus per 60 on 5-on-5. The Leafs are plus 0.72 goals per 60 minutes better. If you take a look at the expected goals, almost exactly the same. Washington is playing better as of late, no doubt about it. But Toronto's a team I like to back at home, and off of a loss, it's a spot that I like them. They're going back on the road. They play at Ottawa next game on Saturday. But I think there's a little bit of value here on Toronto. But I've got a question for you guys. Maybe you know the numbers here, because I don't. It's just something that seems to me that Toronto's a team who plays to their competition. You mentioned their struggles against Buffalo. How many times has Toronto been a big favorite this year, and they just have not come out and played very well? Now they're playing a team that's playing very strong coming into playing them. I think they get a focused effort here. Toronto is a big favorite I don't want, but Toronto, either in a revenge situation or off of a loss, is something I look forward to. 160 is a little bit cheap to me. As you have a pizza bet on one side, I've got a pizza bet on the other. It's not going to be on my card here, but I kind of like Toronto. I think the line's a little bit cheap.
Well, the good news is somebody will be having pizza.
Have you seen how much pizza I eat? I just said in chat, I've convinced myself that I'm now in the mood for some pizza. So after the show, I'm going to hop in the car and go and grab a couple slices. So and then sit back, do some NHL work, and watch some afternoon Europa League soccer. So yeah, pizza's on the menu today.
Carm, the sad part is I've been eating clean and healthy this week, trying to, get in shape for the summer, and now I'm probably going to get pizza too. So thanks for that, guys. I'm definitely going to be getting some pizza. Let's jump into our next. Actually, real quick, just Brian, just to mention what you were talking about there. It's so true because we've talked about laying prices, and we've talked about what's worthy of laying juice on it, and certain teams in the league, I think, are like I always mention on this show, certain teams' record against teams with a below 500. I really like that stat with a below 500 record. And, what's funny about the Maple Leafs is that, to your point about kind of the units gained, if you looked at their, let's say, last, 15 games against a team with a below, 400 record, and they were minus 400 or higher, that's a losing proposition at that point. But there's also going to be certain teams. The New York Islanders are one of the teams I look at against teams with losing records. They play very well. At the team that has a worse record than them, the Islanders always get up for. The Vegas Golden Knights, a team that I bet on confidently in high spots. I would be willing to lay juice with them. So it is funny because, it's not just an auto bet to see a minus 300, 400, but certain times I will see, Vegas against the Coyotes, puck line, sure, and I don't think twice about it. But the Leafs do, let themselves play down to their competition sometimes. But as you said, they're playing a stronger opponent tonight. So we'll see how that changes for them. But to your point with the units gained, I think, you could be 14-1 against really, really crappy teams. But if that one that you lost is like a minus 450 or 500, then that one's going to sting a little bit. But it's all about the bankroll management and picking those spots. And speaking of picking spots, go ahead, Carm.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, and Brian makes a good point as the same thing that what you're talking about is of the Leafs playing up or down to their competition. We've seen it, and we see it with a lot of teams. But again, if you go back to the not the last loss to Buffalo, but the one prior to that at home, which was an absolutely flat effort from the Leafs, they followed that up with 2 games in which they at home or 2 games which they beat Dallas for 4-0, and I think it was Carolina 3-2. Both with Austin Matthews on the sidelines because of a suspension, right? So 2 very good teams, and they knocked both of them off a loss against a team that they should have beaten and didn't. So it's we see it all year long. A team playing down to their opponent or playing up to their opponent. So we could see that tonight.
Well, we'll talk about the Dallas Stars here, Brian, a team that I made as my sell team for this week. It's not off to a great start. My sell, topic and wager here this week. Obviously, they're off a win. But you take a look at this team. They are now on that last position in the wild card spot. So they are just holding on to a playoff spot right now, playing a Minnesota Wild team that is playing some pretty good hockey, at least over the last 2 games. Scoring a combined 11 goals, only giving up 4 goals in those 2 games here. My question to you, what are your thoughts on me making Dallas a sell team for me as they're so desperate this week? And do you see them being in the playoffs here when you and I talk a couple weeks from now?
I think if they make the playoffs, they'll be a dangerous team because of the way they play. I'll be looking to play on them as a nice size underdog if I can get that. I think the lines maker knows the situation. This team's built for the playoffs. But based on what's happened over the last month, I can see going against them. You take a look over the last month or so, goals plus or minus per 60. They're up 0.06. Minnesota's up 1.75. So you got like over a 1.5 goal advantage on 5-on-5 in actual goals. And then when you take a look at the expected goals, sure, it's a little bit closer, but Minnesota is clearly the better team. The other day, Dallas was in a situation where I thought they were a good bet. But, this is a team fighting for the playoffs. And if you look at their goals on the season, they've been outscored. They're 42-31 on the season if you count the losses. Obviously, if you go to overtime and lose, it's a loss. So 42-31 on the season, but yet they've been outscored by 2 goals. I like the way they play. It's a playoff type of success is the way they're set up. But I can see them not making the playoffs here. And I think the line's a little bit cheap, to be totally honest with you, the way Minnesota's playing. I made a mistake the other day, and I went against Minnesota. And as soon as I did, I thought, why am I going against Minnesota? This team is probably playing the best hockey in the league right now. And sure enough, Minnesota wins, and I took that loss. But at the time, I thought I had some value. In retrospect, I didn't. And I said to myself at that time, until Minnesota starts faltering, I'm not going to go against this team. And you're getting them in, not a pick-up price, but, a pretty decent price right here in Minnesota. I'm seeing 115s and 120s for the road team here. So I prefer the Minnesota side here, even though Dallas obviously has the need. I think that need is built into this line. That's why we're getting Minnesota here as a cheap number.
I would agree with you on that completely, and I'm going to stick to my guns with that. And, hats off to the Dallas Stars, though. I'll tip my cap to that 1-0 victory. I mean, it's hard enough to beat the Lightning, but to win in that fashion is very impressive. Carmen, I got a few numbers here that you might find pretty cool here. These are future bets to make or to miss the playoffs. Okay, Dallas Stars right now to make the playoffs minus 950. You want to bet on them right now to miss the playoffs plus 550 for a team that is not or is just currently in that last spot. Plus 550. The Nashville Predators, if you want to take them to miss the playoffs today and look at them to slide for the rest of the season, the schedule they have, the Carm broke down, plus 940. You can lock in. You lock in both those teams even to miss the playoffs. One of them cashes. You're making some decent money there. It is a fun time of year for those type of wagers. What are your thoughts there, Carm? I mean, you talked about the schedule there. Obviously, you need some things to go your way, but I look at that Dallas Stars one, especially at plus 550, and I'm just thinking to myself, they're in the last spot. There's plenty of games left. And I'll tell you what, if Minnesota wins tonight, that number moves. Every single day now, these numbers will be changing. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, it's tough, Andrew. When you look at the standings in the West, like I said, it's going to come right down to the wire, and probably that final Friday of the season, which kind of puts a damper on things because I really want to put together a playoff preview show, but we'll figure that out as we go along. But you look at teams, and Nashville does have a tough schedule, but they help themselves out if they win. Obviously, if they win tonight against the Oilers, you look at the Stars. I'm looking forward to this game tonight because it is a pure playoff game, and I'll get to my thoughts on it in a second. And you look at the teams that are like in eighth, the LA Kings. I mentioned the LA Kings have the easiest schedule to close out. Now, they've played 76 games, so they only have 6 games left. And I honestly feel like, I thought they were a great pick 2 games ago against Chicago, a great spot. And then I was pretty sure that they were going to be on the wrong end of the result yesterday, and they were. I didn't think it was going to be a game in which they allowed that many goals. But they're pretty much going to the Kings are going to have to run the table to make the playoffs, even though they're sitting in 8th spot right now. 6 games left. They're going to play Anaheim a couple times. I believe Seattle, Chicago. They're going to have to run the table, win all 6 games. I think even going 5-1 might not get them into the playoffs because of the fact that you have teams behind them with games in hand. And then, of course, you have teams in front of them with games in hand on them as well. So the Kings are in a tough spot. I think they're going to have to run the table, go 6-0. And I'm not sure they can do that because teams like Anaheim, who aren't playing for anything, would love nothing better than to beat a team like the LA Kings and keep them out of the playoffs. With that said, going to tonight's game, this is going to be a good one. It's crazy because you look at the previous results of this game and the totals at 6, and you see 7-2 Mini, 7-4 Dallas, 6-3 Dallas, just a ton of goals, 9 or more goals in every game. And you're like, the total's at 6, let me take it. But then you look, and you also have to figure it's now Marc-Andre Fleury in goal and Ottinger, and this is a game which is, I don't want to call it a must-win for either team, but Minnesota needs to hold on to that 3rd spot or the 2nd spot in the division, 3rd spot overall. You don't want to get leapfrogged by St. Louis and then have to meet St. Louis in the first round with St. Louis having home ice. So every game is important to them. And the same goes for Dallas as well, too. They're in that 7th spot. You don't want to lose games, especially because you have Vegas and Vancouver right behind you who are continuing to win games. And so with that said, the total's at 6 here. I'm actually going to lean to the under and go almost take the contrarian view that we're not going to see as many goals as we saw in the first 3 games. And this is a tighter playoff type game, similar to that Dallas game where they beat Tampa Bay, and that was a 1-0 final in that game. So while I might not pick a side, I'm going to look at the total and go under the total. Go against everything that we've seen between these 2 teams this year. I think the change in goalies, especially for Minnesota, makes me want to lean to the under.
Awesome stuff there, Carmen. Brian mentioned, what type of playoff team the Dallas Stars really are. And if you're going to talk about this having a playoff feel to it, then I'm right there with you. I think it will be a low scoring game. And again, I tip my cap to what they were able to do against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think that they're going to try and do the exact same thing. And, you know, to me, as a diehard hockey fan, I love games like that. I don't need a 6-5 game to be entertained. You know, there's so many things that are getting changed about sports. You know, Brian, you've been a baseball fan. I know Carm, you as well, but you're a huge baseball guy, Brian. I'm sure that you would have no problem watching a baseball game for 6 hours or 4 hours, however long. You don't need them to change the game, right? And I don't like the game changing for hockey as much. You know, I'm younger, but I like the way the game is, you know, and I have no problem watching a 2-1 game, just like you probably have no problem seeing the manager go out to the mound to talk with a pitcher and stuff like that. So I like the old fashioned style of hockey. And I think that we'll see that tonight, which could make Carm correct there with that under. But, you know, I got to get your thoughts on that, Brian. I mean, as far as hockey goes, do you feel like that's like an okay comparison to make? Because, you know, the Florida Panthers, a lot of new fans are starting to love that team. They put up 6 or 7 goals every game, you know, and my Montreal Canadiens last year in the playoffs. I mean, what was successful about them? You know, score 3 goals and Carey Price will do the rest. I mean, that to me is comparable to baseball. It's kind of a different style of hockey, but it's old school.
Yeah, I agree. I actually went to a minor league hockey game with a friend yesterday. I went to see the Henderson Silver Knights, and he was completely. I hadn't seen this guy in probably 6 months, and he was trying to talk, but of course the game is loud. It's, you know, it's Vegas. They're trying to do it very similar to what they do at the Golden Knights games, but it's loud. They're playing loud music the whole time, and he goes, "I can't even talk. I can't hear." I go, "You're just too old, man." I said, "If you want to go somewhere and you want to talk, we'll go to a baseball game. I got the time. It's the greatest time to spend with your friends going to a baseball game because you got the pitch. Then you got 20 seconds. You can turn to them and say, 'Hey, you want another beer or whatever?'" I enjoy baseball regardless if it's a 1-0 game or a 13-12 game. It's fun to me. I enjoy getting out, getting in the sun. And that's one of the big things with baseball is you get to catch up and, you know, talk to your friends. You can't do that in an NBA game or a hockey game. It's different. So it's two different things, but I enjoy it all. But I fully understand your points.
And as much as I love, you know, as you guys know, I'll chat your ear off every day of the week. But even me at a hockey game, sometimes, you know, Carmen and I went to the Vegas game together and we chatted, but we weren't, you know, in full conversation for 60 minutes of that hockey game because we're watching the game, you know. And, you know, I go to the junior hockey league where I'm from, and some people are there, Brian, they don't even care about the game. They're just there for a social outing. You know, I've heard people talk literally nonstop for 60 minutes, and it's like, come on, guys, watch the game. But any thoughts on that, Carm? I mean, the comparison of, you know, the new school with 6-5 games versus the old school 1-0 games?
Well, I'm much older than you, Andrew. I'm like twice your age, so I grew up where they played more defense than they did now. I remember sort of the, you know, even going for, you know, the neutral zone traps, the New Jersey Devils. I used to love that hockey, and I keep waiting for it to happen during the last couple of weeks of the season where teams need points and they're jockeying for position. You think they're going to be tighter games, games that get to overtime, kind of like the Vancouver, while it was a 5-4 game, Vancouver and Vegas just a few nights back, where the game went to OT and Vancouver wins the game, but Vegas picks up an all-important point as well too. And you figure that that's going to happen over the course of the next 10 games or so for some of these teams. 1 point could be the difference between making the playoffs or missing the playoffs for some of these teams in the West. So I want to see that playoff style hockey, obviously early on. But to your point of it, the Vegas games, I saw 2 of them while I was in Vegas over those 12 days that I was there, the Florida and the Nashville game. And you can't have a conversation, as Brian said, because it is so loud that you literally have seconds in between the loud music. So you're better off just WhatsApping the guy in the seat beside you. It's the only way you can hear it. But I enjoy it. I love the atmosphere at the Vegas Golden Knights games. And I wish more teams would do that. The scoreboard, how they make everything interactive is so much fun. And then on the other hand of it, like Brian says, baseball games. I am going to be going to a bunch of Blue Jay baseball games. I enjoy them. The weekday games, you just go out there, and if they're afternoon games, You're sitting there, the sun, the retractable roof is open, and you're just having a good time. Beer vendors, hot dogs, whatever. How can you not enjoy sports? I absolutely love it. And the Jays have a great team this year, or what is shaping up to be a very good team this year. So we'll see.
To get back to the actionable info, you gave me a good segue there, which I wanted to mention, Carm, about the tight games. I promised myself and the viewers I'd mention some of these, so I'm happy I remembered. Plus 335, guys. That price is what you can get on the draw for the game between the Wild and the Stars tonight. Talk about every single point matters. Every single point matters, and overtime you'll get a point. I mean, plus 335. This is the time of year where I might sprinkle a little bit on these draws. This isn't a regular bet, but to say that, going to overtime and even losing is better than, just getting a regular loss for the Stars tonight would be an understatement. Even getting that 1 point would be really nice. And one final point there about the crowds and that kind of stuff, Carm. I got to give a shout out to our producer, Dan. He's a big lacrosse guy. And I went to my first lacrosse game ever, an NLL game like 2 years ago. It is an absolute party. Like, I felt like I was at a party and there was just a lacrosse game going on in the background. Like, it is just unbelievable. There's just like music blasting. Like, every single person is like 10 beers deep. It is hilarious. So if you guys haven't been to a lacrosse game yet, definitely go to one of those. You'll have a great time. But back to hockey here with the Oilers and Nashville Predators, our next game. We have the Nashville Predators minus 120. Oilers, they're plus 100 here. And, well, it's kind of a not so fast moment with the Edmonton Oilers based on what we saw in their last performance against the Minnesota Wild, a game that was very highly talked about. Kind of a big test, in my opinion, for the Oilers. And Carm, you always say you don't want to sound like a broken record, but when it comes down to those big games, it's about defense and goaltending. And, the superstar caliber team that has McDavid and Draisaitl. And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins said they're one of the deepest teams that he's had, been a part of in the NHL. They didn't show up in that big game against the Wild. Now they're playing the Predators here, a team that, you've discussed their schedule. I've talked about my bet on them to miss the playoffs that I made several months ago. And they've been a little up and down recently. No matter who they're playing, they've been a little up and down recently here. And they went from putting up numbers goal scoring wise to slowing down a little bit. And now you do have a, lack of better words, pissed off Edmonton team coming to town here as plus 100 dogs. Is it a spot here for the underdog to bounce back, or does Nashville get it done at home here, Carm?
I think Nashville could get it done at home. Actually, I think this is a winnable game for them. They're playing well at home. They're like 8-2 their last 10 at home. The Oilers have won the first two games of the season series between these two, but both those games were in Edmonton. And you look at, they're pretty much right there in points. Oilers with 90, the Preds with 89. The market really didn't move on this one. It opened up at about minus 110 both ways. The total went up a few cents on the 6, and the Preds are sitting at like minus 120. You look at that, and I talked about it. You look at the Preds schedule, and it is a tough one for them closing out. They got 9 games left. They play the St. Louis Blues, Calgary Flames twice, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and the Colorado Avalanche. That is 6 super tough games, not including tonight's game against the Oilers. If they were to lose this game against the Oilers, you then have 6 of your final 8 games against playoff-bound teams. And it's very tough for a team who's sitting on 89 points right now and just 4 points up on the Vegas Golden Knights, who are on the outside looking in right now. So things could get real bad real fast for this Preds team. I think we see a good effort from them tonight. And I get it, the Oilers are playing well, but they have dropped their last couple of games. And at even money, I don't see the value in Edmonton. Brian might. I don't see the value in Edmonton. And I think the price is short enough that I think we might see a good game out of the Preds at a very short price in a game that I don't want to use must-wins, because that must-win thing to me never makes any sense. The game is played on the ice 60 minutes, sometimes a little longer than that. But I'm going to take the Preds here, minus 120. Brian?
I like a lot about what you guys have been talking about. To me, even though the teams are not carbon copies of each other, from a strength standpoint, they're basically the same. You take a look at the home records: Nashville 23-12, Edmonton 23-12-1. On the road, 19-14-5, 19-14-5. Take a look at goals scored on the season. Nashville's plus 27, Edmonton's plus 21. You talked about the differential in points, just 1 point differential. We take a look at goals plus or minus over the last month. The Predators have a 0.03 advantage. You take a look at expected goals over the last month. Edmonton's up a little bit. So these two teams are very equal when it comes to total strengths in this game. So I can see this game going either way. I am going to touch on this as my best bet from a total standpoint, and I'll get to that in a moment. But to make a case for either side here, I really can't. I expect this to be a tight game all the way through, but I will come back as my best bet, and we'll talk a little bit about the total.
A little bit of a teaser there for the best bet. Bryan Leonard, WagerTalk.com. Of course, you can find Carmine there and myself as well. It's a great day at the website. Lots of action loaded up for everybody. And just a reminder, both Carmine and Bryan, great records right now with their 5% plays. Great records overall, and they do have some up tonight for grabs. For me, just sticking with the 4% plays for tonight, the best bets. But these two guys do have 5% plays up. Make sure you grab them at WagerTalk.com. Grab a day pass. You can get every single thing they release. Of course, with soccer, baseball, NBA, so many things going on this week. Always great grabbing a day pass, 3-day, 7-day, and not just putting everything into just the one play. Guys, we have one really good game to finish off this show. We jump into best bets at the end, and then, of course, we'll wrap things up here. The Vegas Golden Knights, the Calgary Flames here. Calgary minus 160, Vegas plus 135. There's a huge storyline here in this one. The Vegas Golden Knights, they held the division for a large part of the season, and here comes the Calgary Flames to just steal that spot away from them. Maybe it was because Carm had faith in them and put in that nice future on them to win the division. But they're doing really well, and they've got lots of depth. Johnny Gaudreau, I saw, was in a very small group of guys drafted after the third or fourth round to crack the 100-point mark. Several guys contributing. Matthew Tkachuk is off a hat trick for the Flames. Totals at 6 here in this one, guys. And, Carr mentioned must win doesn't mean will win. I've been saying that all the time. And we break down these situations. And clearly, the way we sit right now, this game means a hell of a lot more to the Vegas Golden Knights. And it's kind of shocking to think where they currently sit in the standings. It really is. I mean, looking at what happened from, November, December, January, and then, looking forward after that, February, March, kind of just the downfall of this team, but it's injuries. And one thing I will say about this team, and one thing I'll say about the last game that they played, which I had Vegas and they lost there, you take a look, and there were a couple of players coming back to the lineup, both defensively and offensively, including big player Mark Stone on that team. And one thing that I'm kind of disappointed in myself was that, you have to give time for the chemistry to redevelop. And I jumped on them. They're back healthy again. It was a revenge spot after the Canucks beat them 5-1. And I liked the Golden Knights in that spot. They lost the game. Robin Leonard did have a poor game, though. The goals saved above average stat that Bryan will give us quite often was not good for Robin Leonard early in that game. But they climbed back, went all the way into the extra frame, and, of course, ended up losing that one. But it was a good game. And I'm going to ride this Vegas team one more time here in this spot at plus 135. I like this price. I do like what I saw from Vegas, in the last 30, 35 minutes of that game. And, I think that, again, it was kind of a mistake in my part to not give it a game for that chemistry to develop, between Theodore, between Pacioretty, between Stone. There are so many snipers on that team. And I believe they'll get up for this one against Calgary in Alberta, Bryan. So I'm riding your team with the Vegas Golden Knights tonight at the dog price. What do you think here?
I was with you on that game against Vancouver. The line did move up about 10 cents when they announced that Stone was going to play. And I continued to bet Vegas in game. I thought they were the better team, and they were not getting the results that they should have gotten. And you mentioned Leonard a goal. It wasn't as much Leonard as it was the defense. The defense was giving up. Pacioretty gave him a gift goal, or I'm sorry, not Pacioretty. When the defenseman gave him a gift goal, and the whole defense did not play well in that game. So I don't put it all on Leonard, although he didn't have one of his better games. But I'm kind of torn here. Obviously, my heart wants to root for the Golden Knights here, but my head knows that we may see something a little bit different. The price is, I think it's a little bit of a bargain here on Calgary. If you take a look at, the last month's stats, obviously Calgary's been much better. Vegas is getting guys back, one at a time or whatever. But keep in mind, Stone practiced 2 times before they played that game. And he was practicing fully the last game, so they were basically letting him skate. And then the practice before that, he played the way that he normally would have practiced. But keep in mind, the guy hasn't played in a long time, and he just played 2 days ago. And now he's coming back, and he's got to be a little bit sore. He's an older guy. That is a concern here. And, you talk about the need for Vegas. Well, Calgary, you kind of touched on this originally. Calgary knows that Vegas has been the team to win this division ever since Vegas has been in existence. So it's a prove-it game for Calgary because they're playing Vegas fully staffed for the first time all year. I think Calgary right now is the better team. I'd like to see Vegas win here, but I can't go against Calgary because I think this is a prove-it game to them, and they know that they don't want to face the Golden Knights in the playoffs. Somebody mentioned the other day in one of our talks about the Kings, and I said they'd rather face the Kings in the playoffs as opposed to Vegas. And they came in and said, "Hey, this team's confident. They don't care who they play." And I said, if you're being honest and you're a Calgary player, you don't want to see this Vegas team right now in the playoffs. So if they could keep Vegas out, I think it's very important for them to do so. So both teams have the same reason to play this game. So I kind of like Calgary here. I hope you're right. I really do. It's not going to make my card, but I think Vegas has got a tough night ahead of them.
It's certainly a tough game. It's going to be a big one here. Looking forward to watching it here. Carm, obviously, I know who you're cheering for as far as that future goes that you have. But what do you think about tonight's game from a betting standpoint?
I like that I get to break the tie here because it looks like you guys are leaning 2 different ways here. But yeah, I am a Calgary fan as far as futures bets go. But I'm going to lean Vegas here, and here's a couple of the reasons why. Calgary had that great stretch where they had 21 of 26 games to close out the season at home, and they beat a lot of good teams along the way. But recently at home, not the best record. They've got a 5-game win streak going, but 2 of them against Seattle, 1 against San Jose, 1 against Anaheim, 1 against the Kings. They have yet to face a team like this Vegas Golden Knights team that are at getting back to and very close to full strength. And then you look at the games they lost prior to that: St. Louis Blues, Colorado Avalanche, teams of quality. So they're going to face a team of quality and a Vegas team that hasn't given up yet on making the playoffs. And you got to give them credit for that game in Vancouver. They could have given up a couple times down by 2 goals, I think 3-1 and 4-2 in the third period. They could have given up, but they battled back and got that game to OT and at least picked up a point. That's where you want to see a team that scraps, and this is what you're likely going to see from them tonight. Whether some Calgary money comes in to push Vegas a little higher, and you can get plus 140, plus 145. I'm good with plus 135 here. I'm not discounting how good the Calgary Flames have been, But I think the Vegas Golden Knights are competing right now. They went through that stretch, 7 games on the road. They looked absolutely listless, like they couldn't beat anyone. Since then, they've gone 3-0-1 and looked a hell of a lot better. So with that said, hopefully a good performance tonight, because they've got the Alberta double where they've got to face Edmonton in a couple days as well too. So I got to believe they want to win one of these 2 games, and likely the first one, so they can focus on trying to get something out of that second one. So I'm going to take the plus money here with the Vegas Golden Knights.
All right, Vegas for Carm. Guys, we are short on time here for this show. I do apologize. I know a lot of that is probably because of me getting sidetracked a little bit here on this show. But Brian, I'll go to you for your best bet and what you have up for grabs for clients tonight, man.
Yeah, we've got 3 plays up in baseball, won 4 straight in baseball after a couple losing days to start the season. But we have the big 5% play in hockey today. I may end up adding Minnesota also to that. So if it may be there, so that's a quality play for me. We'll go back to the Edmonton-Nashville game that I spoke about earlier. We've got an Edmonton team who normally, when they win, they score. They've been playing very good hockey, but you go back the last few games, they just played Minnesota. They scored 1 goal. Right before that, they played Colorado. They scored 2 goals, or should be just 1 goal. And then when they played the Kings, they scored 3, and San Jose 2. So this is a team that's not scoring very well right now. And you got a Nashville team also has been a little bit of a scoring slump as of late. They scored the 1 in overtime against San Jose. Against Pittsburgh, who's not known for their defense, they scored 2 in an overtime game. Against Florida, they score 1, score 3 against Ottawa. So you got 2 teams that have much better scoring history than they've done lately. I think this game comes out. I'm going to be a little bit contrarian in that regard here. I expect both teams to have their offense firing tonight. So I'm going to take the over in this game between Edmonton and Nashville. I'm not normally a guy who plays a lot of totals, but I thought this was worthy of a wager in tonight's game.
A rare total, but when Brian does have a total, make sure you guys are watching out for it. Over for Brian, Edmonton and Nashville. I'm also on a total here, guys, for my best bet. I'm rocking with St. Louis, the Blues here, and the Buffalo Sabres over 6.5. We have seen the Blues playing, Blues hockey right now, showing off their talent and what they have, and their power play has been strong. They're putting up goals in bunches recently, going up against the Sabres team that, as we touched on in this show, have played upset. Their team totals have cashed, and they have been competing in games. That top 6 for them is playing very well right now, and despite either a win or a loss, they're putting up goals, and they're being involved in some high-scoring games. So I'm on the Blues and Sabres over 6.5. Like I mentioned so far, locked in, 1.4%. Best bet up in the MLB for later on today. Hockey plays will be up shortly after this show. Best of luck to you, Brian, on your 5% play. And, of course, Carm, over to you for your best bet, and best of luck to you on your 5% play.
Yeah, it's 3 plays up in afternoon Europa League action. Teams looking to get into the semifinals of that competition. I'm going to have a couple baseball plays up as well. And right now, only the one NHL play, the 5% play, but I may add one more. So while you can grab the 1-day pass, which is $39, I actually suggest if you want, the 3-day pass, which is $59, because I'm going to have a big card Saturday, Friday and Saturday, and a big 5% play in soccer on Saturday. So you get all of those for $59, not a bad deal. As far as my show best bet, guys, I'm going to go to the Pittsburgh-New York Islanders game. I think it's a very good rapid revenge spot for this Pittsburgh team. Listen, they're playing well despite the losses. It's a little bit of puck luck. They had to play a Washington team that played very well, the Rangers, Colorado. They lost that game to the Islanders last time out 5-4 in OT. But the goaltending in that game was DeSmith versus Sorokin. Obviously, the Islanders had the advantage goaltending-wise. It's a little different here. It's going to be Tristan Jarry and it's going to be Varlamov, which obviously favors the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm going to take them in regulation at -110. And the reason for the regulation in -110 is because I feel like we're going to see some Pittsburgh money coming in throughout the day that's going to push this line up to 160, 165, 170. And that's usually out of my comfort zone, as you guys know. If you're fine with laying the 170, then you take the 170 on Pittsburgh. But I'm going to take him in regulation time, minus 110 to get the job done as your show best bet.
Awesome stuff there, Carm. You can find all of us over at WagerTalk.com. Quick recap. I have the Blues Sabres over 6.5. Carm with Pittsburgh in regulation. Brian with Edmonton, Nashville over 6. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And we'll see you tomorrow.
The NBA playoffs start April 16th, and with the play-in games, there are now 20 teams vying for the NBA championship. The 2022 playoffs give you up to 9 weeks of action, with game number 1 of the NBA Finals not even tipping off until June 2nd. Last year, the NBA playoff package was listed for $249, but we've made it even better this year by lowering the entire 9-week playoff package to $199. While the early bird catches the worm may be a cliche, but it holds true to this incredible offer. The first 99 customers can use the coupon code FIRST99 and save an additional $50 off the playoff package, dropping the price down to $149. That's right, 9 weeks of NBA action for $149. That's under $17 per week. Act fast to use code FIRST99, as only the first 99 customers can use this code.